Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Sheldon Alt with Concept Agritech, and I've also got Mark Glastetter from Concept Agritech here, and the myth, the legend, Mr. Chris Weaver is joining us this morning too. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing really well. We're a little cold here in Maryland this morning, but I'm heading to North Dakota or South Dakota, excuse me, tomorrow, where it's even going to be colder. So, hey, guess what? I can't escape the cold. It's all right.
What's your morning temperature? What's your feel like this morning there?
We were 19 this morning.
Mark, what about you?
We're sitting at a whopping 5 degrees this morning, so I feel like that old saying, had to walk to school uphill in the snow both ways. We did that to the office this morning, Weaver. So feel special, buddy. It's all for you.
It's going to be 9 degrees here tomorrow, they say, when I board the plane, and then by the time I get back, it'll still be 9. So I'm going from cold to extremely cold to come back to cold.
Gotta love it.
I remember back when my dad was still around, he would plow snow with an old Farmall M and just had a straight blade on it and no cab or nothing. But you guys remember, like, from the 90s, those seed gloves you'd get, like the felt gloves or whatever? Like, that's all he would wear, and like one of those hats that flip down, And I just feel like, man, today that would be pretty chilly in those gloves today. I remember we had a whole box in the shop of those gloves, and you could like never find the right matching pair and stuff. Like, do they still make?
Need to bring them back if they do.
Yeah, they still make them. You can get them. Listen, we're not as tough as we used to be years ago. We got heat cabs. I got a snowblower now with a cab. I don't know. I feel like we became sissified over the last couple of years, more or less, than anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
Weaver, been a couple, or 1 week, 2 weeks since I've seen you over in Kentucky at a nice little grower meeting over there. So
that was a good meeting. Good time. A lot of feedback back from that meeting. I'm very happy. Getting ready to fly to South Dakota, Sioux Falls tomorrow to do one on Wednesday, and then February 2nd, another meeting in I believe it's Wynne, Arkansas. That's where I'll be for one of these kind of meetings as well. And then I'll be speaking a couple other places throughout too, but those are the important ones for you guys right now.
So, I have not been to one of those meetings yet this season, Weaver. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about those meetings? What are you guys covering, and then what's those meetings?
So the first thing we do, just so everybody knows, is we pick dates when we know when Sheldon will not be available, and that's the days that we pick. So if Sheldon's not available, that's why I'm going to South Dakota, because he's at a trade show. So here's really what it is. We've all been to grower meetings before. We've all sat as farmers. We've all been bored out of our minds. You get somebody up there and they shoot all these ideas at you, tell you everything that they're doing. Well, what's really frustrated me in the last couple of years is I know what I'm doing in Maryland. I help enough people around the world. You met the young man down there in Kentucky, Mark, that I've been helping for a couple of years. I got up to 120 bushel beans, heard him and his dad having the contest. Dad did 71, he did 120 bushel. Those are the pretty cool things you get to hear along the way. But the big thing about these meetings is the growers can bring their soil samples. They can bring their own tissue samples. This is set up for them. If they do not take the time to ask the right question, or, hey, to stand up and ask a question, then they left there not knowing the answer. What would you do on my ground? How would you handle my magnesium level, my sulfur level? What would you be doing if you farmed my ground? That's what the XFactor meetings are. The XFactor is nothing fancy. It's what am I leaving on the table? Y and Z equals X. Is your planter ready? Is your sprayer ready? Are you using the right products? A lot of times I talk to guys on the phone and they're like, I mix this together. I said, well, do you even need this? And most times they don't. They need other things. So the XFactor meeting is not designed for me to sit there and tell you this is what I'm doing. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'll give you the numbers you need to achieve, but you need to be honest and come in there and say, hey, this is what we're doing. There is no dumb questions. I mean, Mark was there. I make you cluck like a chicken at the beginning, so no one's scared to ask a question. We've all been embarrassed, but all these meetings in the past, you get embarrassed to go. You're scared to raise your hand, and then after the meeting, you want to come up and talk to me, ask me 100 questions. Well, that's what this is designed for. Ask the questions. If you want to get ahead, look, Travis Swisher is going to be speaking up there in South Dakota this week. What a phenomenal young man. At some of the best yields he's ever done. He's got an amazing spreadsheet that he's put together. These are the things that I'm excited about, that I have kind of met people along the way, have met a lot of awesome, ideas that some people have. And not just me telling you what I would do, but this is also a learning experience for me. I might take an idea away. One of the things, guys, everybody will hear me tout is our test weight on beans. I've never hit 60-pound test weight. I've been 58.8. It's really the best we've done, that 58.9. I want to hit 60-pound test weight. Yeah, we know how to grow big beans. One of my personal goals is to get 60-pound test weight. Well, I've been asking people that when I'm traveling and going like, has anybody hit 60 pounds, So that is a real big focus for me, and that's where I'm putting a lot of my energy currently. So the XFactor meetings, as you guys will find out and you'll see, are let's get the questions answered that farmers want. If they have a planter question, sprayer question, fertility question, a biological question, it's just not me that's going to be up there. I'm just thinking about flying out tomorrow for the South Dakota meeting, and that's where you'll hear a lot of my focus right now. But, Greg down there in Kansas, and the beans that we've been able to get, the blossoms we've been able to get. Greg's done a phenomenal job in increasing his yield and increasing things while still fighting high sulfur in his water table, and how humics and sugar have helped correct that. And, the carbon RX with the amino acids in it, as well as the humics and sugar, are a big component for his success.
Yeah. No, ton of education in general. I mean, that's been, our goal at Concept Agritech is more education than, product driven. Got a lot of feedback from guys at the Kentucky meeting that, they were expecting us to just kind of get up there and talk about all the great products that we have, but it's really more about education, management practices, different things like that. So, we do a lot of grower meetings, and the feedback and the interaction that we had at that meeting, of people, like you said, raising their hand. Hey, I see your tissue levels are here, mine are here. What can I do? That's where you really learn. And you talked about it too, Chris. We got some of what I would consider the local celebrity guys, right? People can come from halfway across the country and tell them how to do certain things. But when you've got really respectable, high yielding, very profitable guys in your backyard, that's a great asset to everybody, and to gain more information, and again, education. So,
but
and I think
Dakota has.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Well, like South Dakota, they're going to have to deal with sluices and water coming in from their irrigation that I don't deal with. I don't have irrigation, but you're going to have guys there that have. I mean, last year with Brooks Slayball getting up and saying how we helped reduce the salt in his soil, that was a big kicker for him, and that was pretty awesome that we did that. So, these meetings, that's what they're really set up to do, is get farmer interaction, just not hear from me, but to get everybody talking in a way, where it works. One of the good things that I want to say is this is what has really drawn me to Concept Agritech over the years, okay? And I've heard it from Trey, the CEO, from Mark, Sheldon, from pretty much everybody, is, hey, we have a whole book here of products, but sometimes our product might not be the product that works for you. And that's hard for a lot of companies. And that is one of the benefits I'm going to give you guys, and why I like working with you and your company and your products and you guys, is the fact that you guys aren't scared to say, hey, you might need to go get X from so-and-so because it might work better than what we're doing. And you help to put that whole plan together. You know, one of the very first slides that you'll see in these XFactor meetings is get a team, a trusted team that won't pick on you. You know, and that's where I rely on Kyle, Mark, Sheldon, all you guys, Craig Baraball. You know, I might ask each one of you the same question 100 different ways and 100 different times, but I want to hear, hey, what product is everybody thinking? And that's really the benefit to all this.
Yeah, that's awesome, Weaver. I like that of like get a team, right? Get a team, surround yourself with good people. And if you look at all like the championship teams with basketball, baseball, football, whatever, it's like there's a team there. It's not just one person. And I had someone one time tell me like, hey, why does even the best basketball player in the world, Michael Jordan, need a head coach? Because that head coach is seeing the court from a different angle than you are, right? If you're in the game, if you're in it, you might not notice some of these other little nuances that are going on in your field or agronomically, right? But so if you have someone else helping you, they might pick up on something that you're overseeing or you're missing. So that's awesome. I love that. Get a team together. So it sounds like these XFactor meetings are going to be very engaging, right? You want farmers to bring their questions, bring their soil samples, tissue samples, and really kind of take it to the next level of how can, you, an outsider, help maybe turn over some rocks and find some of those answers, right?
If they don't come ready to ask questions, they're not going to take anything out of the meetings. These meetings are designed for farmers, with farmers in mind, where we're talking out the problems, okay, for their specific farm. It's not about what I'm doing. It's about what can we do to help them increase. You know, when you could hear the young boy last week and his dad talking, when you can, you get these real life scenarios and you're like, wow, they can do it. Why can't we in our back door? That's what really happens. And that's what makes the X Factor really come to light for a lot of farmers in the room.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I'm excited, and I think the attendance for the South Dakota meeting here coming up this week looks pretty good. So that should be awesome. But yeah, so I kind of speaking on those meetings and whatnot. So it's the start of the winter season, and we've got a lot of trade shows and stuff like that coming up. So what trade shows on your radar too? And then maybe what else are you going to be doing this trade show season, I guess?
So we just finished the Keystone Farm Show last weekend, and with our seed company and things like that. So that was a really good turnout. We got to hang out with Brandon Pohl and Game Manger with Golden Harvest. That was a fun time for me because it's less pressure for me. The ones that I'll definitely be at is I'll be at the farm show February 15th for a day in Louisville.
In Louisville, right?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll be there in Louisville. And then the one that I will not miss is Commodity Classic. That's when you get to the heart of everything. The industry leaders are there. If you've got serious questions, I will not miss Commodity Classic. I'll be out the Illinois Soybean Association meeting there February 1st talking. So I'm trying to get out to talk to as many farmers as I can. Yet at the same time, I got to get equipment ready. I still have to farm next year too. So there's a lot that I have to get ready and make sure. One of the new big things that we took on is we bought a new planter this year. So I need to make sure that that's fit. It's already got in furrow on it. It's a 1223, but I want to make sure it's set up my way. I'm very nervous because one thing that I say is never change up too many things at once. So we're changing that pretty fast. But I think it'll be a nice add-on. We have a very sharp young man that works here, Matthew. So we're going to as many drone trainings as possible. He's actually at a John Deere training today. We take advantage of as many trainings as we can where we see value. The drone for us in the future is going to be value, the new planter's value. So we're trying to educate ourselves on those as much as possible. But as far as that goes, I will make sure February 15th I'm in Louisville, as well as Commodity Classic. And then one of the big projects we have working right now is my partner Rodney Finke and I are starting a farmer show called Yielding Generations. And this is taking a lot out of us, where we're going to talk the day-to-day issues with farming. We're going to talk from getting the planter ready to what we're doing in season. We're actually going to show our tissue sample, show what we're doing in season, and follow a field all the way through with you guys as well as a couple other companies, and say these are why we're using the products that we're using and the benefits we're getting from it. So yielding generation taking a little bit out of Rodney and I right now. We weren't prepared for all that.
So that sounds like a pretty cool show. Where can people see that, or what is that going to be on? What kind of platform, I guess, will that be on?
We're just going to start out with YouTube. Something very simple where guys can watch it on their phone. It'll be about 8 to 10 minute segments. We're just going to talk about what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's not a contest. It's not anything else, but these are the products we're mixing together. We're going to have some drone demonstrations of why we're using the drone, why we're doing what we're doing with the planter with John Deere. Just mixing stuff. You know, you guys have a phenomenal chemist, Chris Underwood. And I've known Chris for at least 18 years, if not 20 now. I always make the comment I follow chemists. And when I can follow a guy like Chris or Scott Weber, you know, that really is exciting for me to be able to add people to the list of what we can do. So, you know, I'm going to have Chris on there saying, hey, don't mix these products. You know, I still always remember the time when you add phosphoric acid with potassium, not potassium acetate, but the other one. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, and we get a big volcano, and you blow the roof off the lid. You know, those are things that you never forget. That's the kind of stuff we're going to do, is show why you don't mix these two and the reaction you get.
Does that mean
have
that
a little bit of fun?
Does that mean we get to see you in a nice lab coat with Weaver out there with your goggles on and everything, kind of mad scientist?
No, we're going to do it in a tote. You know, we're going to make sure that we mix enough product together that everybody gets the full effect of the full volcano. So we want guys to see what we actually do, the gassing off effect, how you see steam coming, as well as the foam. You know, there's a lot of things that we do as farmers. We rely on somebody else to tell us, yes, that works, no, it doesn't. And we don't pay attention. You know, did the Roundup work? Did the Liberty application work? Or was it something that the farmer did that messed up that application, where it was very simple? Add a fulvic, add a citric. You know, maybe it was one little small ingredient that you could have added that would have changed the whole difference of the outcome. You know, we're very quick as farmers to blame the seed corn company, blame the fertilizer company, blame whoever. But ultimately, it comes down to us. We mix something wrong, or the mixing order you mix something has a big part of that. So that's all Rodney and I want to show guys. Now, Rodney has the irrigation. He's from central Indiana, so he's going to have different dynamics than I do. He doesn't have what I have is called hills. He's flat. You know,
Yep.
but Rodney's pushing 300 bushel corn, and we're going to follow his and the adventure he has with his crop this year, and just talk out the issues. And we're asking farmers if they want to come by our farm, stop by anytime. It's always open.
Well, sounds like we keep coming back to it. A ton of education, you know, whether it's the yielding generations or these shows, it's all coming back to that education piece. And, you know, we're sitting here, I'm looking at the calendar, it's January 15th, you know, here in Southeast Missouri, we're, you know, potentially 60 days away from starting a farm. You know, there's a few guys getting a little antsy and wanting to get some nitrogen out on some wheat, you know, here this week while it's froze. So all these things you're talking about, this education is kind of prepping us for the, you know, 24 growing season. And Chris, I know, kind of going back to the meetings a little bit, you know, one thing that came up time and time again was that stress mitigation piece. You know, we had people from multi states, and I think everybody endured, you know, some kind of stress during the growing season last year. So I know the majority of people, you know, pretty droughty throughout the entire year. We went through that, and then, you know, at the end of August here in Southeast Missouri, Western Kentucky, we got like 17 inches of rain in 2 weeks. So we went from one end of the spectrum to the other, you know, and that's on everybody's mind. So, you know, we talk about fertility, but, you know, really we're talking about some of these management practices, some of these products and programs that are really trying to mitigate stress at the end of the day. You know, Bert always has a really good way of kind of explaining stress in plants and that stress memory, right? Of, hey, they remember when it's 95. They're going to shut down sooner. When they get to that event again, they're going to remember 18 inches of rain. So it's our job, when looking at designing these programs of how to push that plant into that stress event. So I know that's one thing we spent a lot of time, and you're going to continue to talk about on how to mitigate stress. So that's been a big one, I know.
Well, and it's not just that. It's the relationship between your potassium, your calcium, as well as the relationship with amino acids. It's a very simple thing. 2023 was a trying year for us. We were very dry. Now we're getting rain. We did 126 bushel beans last year on 50 some acres, which is great. But at the same time,
man, that's it. 126, gosh.
It's one of my favorite beans. I'll take time. I told somebody the other day, 4222 from Golden Harvest is one of my favorite beans on the market. That thing is like a rock star. It can take drought. It can take anything. But guys, we had to go over top that field a bunch. We flew the drone a bunch. And that's where guys, we'll talk that out in these XFactor meetings, what all it took to do that. At the end of the year, I was beat. I was tired. I was frustrated. And of course, we started in that field. So I was excited with the bushels per acre, and it just went downhill from there in the dry weather. But we had some hundreds, but when you get in your soils right and you're making everything work within your soil, within your plant, and you get to see that 100 bushel, 120 bushel in dry weather, with the heat, with that September heat for us, where we were a week of 95, 96 degrees, like Sheldon was saying, that really took its toll on us. That really put us backwards. Or, you'll get to see the pictures of all the double crop beans with all the blooms on them that looked amazing, and they only did 60 bushel. Because they couldn't retain the blooms and the pod set because of the heat. But 60 bushel double crop beans in dry weather is not bad either. But there are products out there that help. We've come a long way. Our plant genetics have gotten better. If this was 1996 or 87, we wouldn't even have had a crop. And look at where we've come with technology. And, I pick on you guys. You had the stress tech, or what I like to call the stress tray technologies. That's a big component. The first time I heard all that and I heard you guys talking about it, I said BS. All right, I don't understand it. But now that we're really paying attention and I get to understand the products, there is something behind what you have. And that is important for reducing stress, getting more fertility into the plant. And that's some of what, farmers and growers need to understand, that there is just more behind your technologies than NP and K. Yep. And every company sells an NP and K. It's what else you put in with that NP and K that separates you out. Okay, it's like Carbon RX. Yeah, perfect name for it. You look at Purple Passion, or as you guys call it, Foliar K. There's stuff behind that is more than just a potassium that helps out. It's the different technologies y'all have, and that's where growers need to pay attention. That stress technology or stress tray technology really helps out a lot.
Yep. And we talked a lot about that, potassium and calcium and what those nutrients are doing, like you said, for stress mitigation. And don't want to get off into that and kind of ruin your topics, but those are all things that we covered. And I think there was a lot of light bulbs that went off with people, and it's like, hey, that makes sense. If we can kind of position some of these products and technologies, you don't ever want to, necessarily endure that stressful period. But if you can have a program that's set up to handle it, man, that's a huge win right there. So
and Weaver, that whole like stress mitigation piece is like that's a season long achievement, right? Like that's not, you're not going to come out and like fix with one pass. You're not going to fix the 10 things that maybe were self-inflicted or Mother Nature had, right? Like you're not going to fix it with one pass. It's like a season-long approach to giving that plant the best agronomic balanced diet, right? And the nutrients it needs when it needs it, and taking care of issues that do pop up when you see them as soon as possible. So, I mean, it's not just, you can't go out there with one pass and like say, oh, it's good. We're going to be great. Like It starts from, like your in furrow, or actually it starts with your, soil balance, actually, right? Like that's where it goes. But yeah, it's a season long.
Yeah, it's a season long thing. You're spot on the money. It actually starts before you even put the planter in the ground. Yep. Your soils. But then, I laugh at guys. I talked to a buddy of mine on the phone, and it's calling for rain. We're in the middle of planting season. I was like, "Hey, what are you doing today?" And he's like, "Man, we're just rolling as fast as we can, cover as many acres before this rain event comes in." I go, "This was a cold rain coming. Why aren't you just let the planter sit in the building, stop planting?" He's like, "Well, what are you doing today?" And I was like, "We're just sitting around working on the planters, working around the farm. We're not rolling," because that stress mitigation part is, do I want that seed in that ground in a cold, cold rain? There is being a weatherman, I know what everybody's going to say. They're wrong 50% of the time, so you got a 50-50 shot. But pay attention to the outside temperatures. Pay attention, take soil samples at 6 a.m. Start your own graph. Pay attention to what you're doing. That stress mitigation part begins on that seed right away. It begins on checking on that seed, to your in-furrow fertility, to watching your salt load. If you've got a high salt load, now you just add the stress mitigation as those roots start coming out of that plant, out of that seed. Now you're going to have burn. You're just ruining your yield from the get-go.
Yep.
I know that beans can do 150 bushel. I've heard other guys that have done bigger yields, so we know that we can get 200 bushel out of beans. Okay, that's when you mitigate all the stress. That's awesome. That we can get to these numbers. I also know, I don't want to ever burn my plants with chemicals. So I'm trying to always reduce that salt load, do everything I can in the stress mitigation part. But yeah, stress mitigations from the planter, getting your soils right, from the sprayer, every sprayer pass you make, all the way down to the end of the season. When it's in the combine, you're finally done. Okay. Yep. And I don't care what kind of combine you run, what kind of planter you run. The crop never asked you, what are you going to harvest me with or harvest them with? So I always make that joke. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you're not done until it's in the bin. And as soon as it's in the bin, now you start for the next year. Yep. And now you're right back to beginning. Guys don't think about it during harvest time, Sheldon. Hey, it's raining. We got to go. It's going to call for more rain. We got to keep going. But what's that doing for next year's crop? Now you got compaction spots. Is it better to slow down a little bit and pick your fields a little bit better and wait till it dries out? I know sometimes you can't. My good buddy Jake up there in Michigan, I mean, hell, he's go, but they have to get their corn off. So as we look at things, everything you do has either a positive or a negative reaction, and that's what you have to make the decision. Every farmer is their own manager and has to make that decision. So stress mitigation from beginning to harvest, right back away. We're excited because right now we're at 20-some degrees and we're finally freezing. That's helping that ground to heave and break and do things. That's natural. We love this time of year. Yes, for the livestock side of the farm, we hate this because the waters are frozen. We're upset. But for the crop side, we're really excited.
Yep.
It's just a vicious cycle, isn't it? Just keeps going. Going.
Kind of backtracking a little bit, Chris, something, you mentioned is that salt mitigation and that salt load that we kind of face. That's something I know you'll spend some time in your meeting talking about, and we did in Kentucky, a week or so ago. But, that's a big deal. And I think a lot of people are looking at that salt load that they're getting from numerous factors, right? So that's coming in from, different fertilizers, dry, liquid, chemical. A lot of this chemical is salt based as well. And we have to have those things, right? It's not like we can just say, hey, get rid of all the salt, but what we can do is kind of help manage and mitigate that. You talked about carbon RX, and some of these different humics and fulvics, and those are things that we found, to be tremendous help with, that salt load. We get into some areas, down in Arkansas and different places that naturally are high in salt with a lot of the water that they're pumping. So, those are some tools that we've used over the years to kind of help percolate that salt out of that root zone and really help buffer it. So, I know that's on a lot of people's minds of how to manage that.
Look, Carbon RX is phenomenal because it takes humic and fulvic, and then we add the amino acids in. That's a home run. You know, you guys hit a home run with that product. You know, I've tried other humics throughout the years, and I haven't had the yield response as what I've had with Carbon RX. You know, that formulation is phenomenal. Plus, it's a good humic and readily available to the plant. We like to pick on it, Sheldon, so you can get ready to be mad at me for a sec. We do call it septic juice because the amino acid in it makes it smell a little bit. But
it has a very pungent, it stings the nostrils.
It does. But we know it's working. We see it. But I tell you, that mixed with Sweet Success is a home run every time.
Yep.
You know, and that's really helping us on the plant. But no, I tell you guys, anytime we can reduce this salt load is crucial and very important to everything we're doing. And the thing I found over the last 15, 20 years, I know this is a bad test and it's not very scientific, but if you have a cut on your finger, just stick your finger in that jug of fertilizer. And if it puts you to your knees and makes you cry, just imagine what it's doing to that plant because it's high in salt. I mean, it's not a scientific salt test. I know it's a farmer in the field test, but we were using a product one time years ago. I remember before we changed up, and the company said, we're low in salt. We're low in salt. We're super low in salt. And Dad had a plug up on the planter, and I got back there, and I just cut my hand really bad. And that product was so high in salt, it made me cry. It put me to my knees. I'm in the field. Dad's like, what did you do? And I said, I don't know what's in this, but by the end of the season, our planter was already starting to rust. Okay. So guys, we believe that company. We trusted them to say, hey, we're really low in salt, and they weren't. I mean, the day I got that cut was the day that it went, oh, wow, this is real. This is not low in salt. So that's when we started testing stuff to believe, okay, is it? We all know potash is high in salt. Okay, but which forms are the best? What can we do? Can we use the humics to mitigate it? You know, so the more we can do to reduce salt, the better off our plants will be. No different than us as humans. You know, as we get older, the more salt we have, the worse shape we're in.
True story.
Yep.
So not only something else too, you know, as a visit with a bunch of my buddies and stuff and other growers out there is, you know, it's no lie that some of the commodity prices have dipped a little bit here, but you know, talk to us a little bit about like the efficiency of that, and maybe when commodity prices are down, I mean, does it make more sense to be more efficient or less efficient, right? And I think if commodity prices are down a little bit, you need to be as efficient as possible to help achieve those yields, and maybe reverting back to some old techniques that maybe our fathers or ones before us did might not have been as efficient, right?
So I grew up with a different mentality. I always heard about a bank. Okay, you put your money in a bank to protect it. Well, Dad and Tom and even my grandfather always said fertilizer's the same way. Build your soil up, build a bank, and then you can pull out of that bank in bad years. Well, the problem with pulling out of that bank in bad years is now that we've got our levels to where we need to be, that if we skimp, okay, per se, hey, this year we're going to pull back, we got this nice bank, eventually you got to put that back into the bank, and it's going to cost you money. So the one thing that I've changed a little bit is maybe we might try more foliar feeding. Maybe we might do a different idea, but we're not skimping on that product. We're not skimping on that crop. Okay. So what do I mean? If our potash levels, base saturations are between 4 and 5%, I'm not letting that just go off what's in the ground. We're adding additional potash. That might be a foliar application, a Y dropper, you know, who knows what we're going to do yet for this year. But the big thing is we want to maximize yield to maximize our profits at the same time. Watch our cost per acre. So am I going to do everything we did in 2023? Chances are we'll probably do that and more, and we're looking at corn prices dropping. Why? Because I need to increase the amount of bushels per acre. It's that simple. But I need to be profitable at the same time. Okay, you know, buying more farms, buying a new planter, we got to watch all of our expenses. But when we start skimping is when we notice our yields dropping. You know, this year in the dry weather, we could really see our 103-day to 110-day corn took a dip. Why is that? I quit feeding it. I quit trying to push that yield. I got in the mindset, well, it's too dry. It's not going to make it. But our 110-day to our 118-day corn, I still flew the drone. I still was making sure we got out there and put fungicide on. That was 220 to 230 in a drought. Well, we were like, holy cow, we're actually doing something right this year. Well, what did that make me realize? We just can't stop. Just because it got dry didn't mean we have to stop. Okay. So on beans, we pushed all of our beans this year from our 2.7s all the way up to our 4.5s. We never stopped, and we saw the yield response. Guys, sometimes, yes, soil can be a limiting factor for that too. Sand, silt, clay, we get it all. Clay's going to dry out super fast, and sand's not going to let enough moisture. So you also got to pick which fields you're doing this on and paying attention. But, I really want to make sure we're not going to stop because of commodity prices going down. May we change some of our game plans? Yes. But our, carbon, sugar, zinc, and furrow is going to be the same. The amount of drone passes we make are going to be the same. We're just going to really rely heavier on our soil samples and our tissue samples in 2024. So we're not just wasting money on an application.
Well, I think you're dead on. I mean, we're continuing to learn more and more. Okay, that soil is great, right? Let's build that base. But most times we're trying to mend that gap of what's in the soil versus what's getting into the plant. And a lot of times that's two totally different things. So I think you're dead on with talking about the efficiencies of some of these other management practices, the drone, the Y drop, some of these other factors. We talk about wanting to spoon feed nitrogen, right? We should look at every, basically, fertilizer piece that we're doing and kind of take that same mindset to not just front loaded, but not, it's a blend of both, right? You want that good base, but you want to be able to get it into the plant. So that's super crucial. So one thing we talked about too, and kind of liked your take on it, Weaver. Talk about fungicides a little bit, especially in the soybean crop. We a lot of times are looking at obviously disease pressure, right, and making applications based off of that. But I know you've got a little different approach, and again, coming back to stress mitigation. But how are you using fungicides in your soybeans to really mitigate stress?
So we used to be vegetable farmers at one time. And I always go back, vegetable farmers pay attention to that crop really intensively because they're not just going in and picking one time, they're going in multiple times to pick. So I kind of took some of that mindset over with Ed being part of the team and Dad. I like the fungicide early and often. And, what do I mean? On beans, we're starting V1. As soon as we got flowers, we can get out there, we can start fungicide. We're reducing stress, okay? And then we're paying attention to what diseases are coming in the area. We're watching several different monitoring systems. Beans, I might fungicide 3 to 4 times. Corn, same way. We got tar spot. This year when the dry weather, I kind of got complacent. I'll be very honest and tell you, it got dry, and I'm like, we're not going to waste the money on a, hassle application on fungicide. We were very lucky tar spot didn't come in until later, or else it would have really hurt us this year. But now we have it. It's around us. Now we have to be proactive. So what does that mean in corn? That means we're going to have to get out and we're going to have to start that V3 stage on fungicide. Make that plant have less stress. Beans, corn, wheat, it's the same thing. Guys, what are we thinking? $10 application for a fungicide. Some are cheaper, some do other things. But don't just get a fungicide that's cheap. Get a fungicide that does what you need it to do. Look at the disease you have coming in. Look at the issues coming. Get on the computer. Look at different extension websites. I'll check Purdue because our winds come from that direction. I'll check West Virginia. I'll check Pennsylvania. Penn State has a great one. What diseases are coming to our area so that way we can be prepared. If we have frog eye, we'll switch up what fungicide we're using. If we have some bacterial issues, we'll switch up our fungicides. But I never make a fungicide application with the same fungicide. We're always changing that fungicide application. If we start with a Preaxor or a BioHealth, then I'll put something else in there later on. So that way, we're making sure we're going after the disease that's right there that we're trying to make sure we prevent.
And kind of like what you said there, we were like leaning on your team, right? Using those other sources to figure out what might be coming, what's working for other people in certain areas, right? Lean on that team you got.
Well, and that's one thing, all of our seed advisors are from Ohio. So this makes it great for me because that's where our storms come. So when they have tar spot already hitting the I-70 corridor, they're letting me know. So we're already prepared for what we have next and where we have to be. And, Kyle Shepard's my guy for you guys. He's down south there in the Carolinas. He's letting me know what they have. So I'm always getting a little bit of feedback. They don't know I'm picking their brains either when I'm asking these questions. But I'm trying to figure out, hey, how do I get ahead and what am I thinking for the next thing that we're getting ready to do here? But that's where you got to use your team. And fungicides are the same as, insecticides. Every time we make a pass, we have an insecticide along with the carbon and sugar. We go back and we're building programs and plans now based off what we see soil sample wise. And that's one of the things that I'm working on before I fly out. But one very simple thing is every pass has carbon in it. Every pass has sugar, Sweet Success in with the carbon RX. And then we're following that up with an insecticide every time. It might be a bifenthrin. It might be, a pyrethroid. It depends on what pressure we're having. Is stink bugs prevalent? Is it corn earworm? What are we seeing right now and then that we have to be out spraying for? So we're changing it up. Same as fungicide. Yeah.
I know one thing too, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, Weaver, but a lot of guys that maybe haven't pushed, fertility and that stress mitigation piece, you'll start to see that plant naturally, start fending off some of those disease and pest. I know that's one thing, we tell guys when they say, hey, we're diving in head first to this, fertility piece and biology. It's amazing what those plants can do if you set them up the right way and are doing some of those things. So I think that's important to add as well. Yeah, we definitely have to rely on some of these other, sources, but man, fertility, soil biology, all of that adds to keeping that plant, happy itself, and kind of working for you.
Well, you start looking at different things. You can look at trichoderma. Trichoderma is one of the simplest things we put out there to prevent stress or to help with stress mitigation as well as disease, planter box treatment with that, along with some other biologicals. Well, then you start looking at like Sweet Success. Besides increasing your droplet, when you're spraying, and a great drift aid too, we're also providing a sugar source to that plant, but aphids can't digest the simple sugar. So that just helped on my insecticide control as well. Every one of these products has more than one means to it. And that's where, and I don't mean this to sound negative, but I got to watch how it comes off. A lot of times when you're dealing with the co-op agronomist, you got to pay attention. Why are we using that product? What is its ultimate goal? I'm not just using Sweet Success as a sugar. I'm using it as, hey, we're increasing our droplet. We're drift control aid. We live in Maryland where we have a lot of houses and a lot of grumpy people. So when you spray their lawns, they get pissed off. So that's a great drift aid product, as well as now we're also got that carbohydrate, out there for that plant. We're able to do more. So, we're looking at 3 different modes with one product. Now, how do we go with the other products? And that's really the simple things. I don't run a drift aid. I add Sweet Success to our mix. I know that's not on the label, but I'm just telling you what we do here. When we're going out there, we're spraying 3 quarts to a gallon, and it's a phenomenal drift aid for us. We're spraying a lot of Liberty and Liberty Roundup mixes, and it doesn't affect the burn or no burn from the Liberty, but it's not affecting our kill on the weeds, is what I meant to say with mixing that. Whereas Liberty, if you mix too many different products, you can have serious issues where the Liberty will never work. So, that's why we use those kind of products, Mark.
Absolutely. I know I always get a kick out of Bert, our director of agronomy. he said every year I'd sit down at the table and I get a little sweet success and put it on my biscuit just to make sure we're still food grade and we're still wanting to put it on the plant. So just know that when you're using that, Weaver, it's been bird approved.
I hear he even rubs a little bit in his beard sometimes too. Kind of combs it through, gives it that nice sheen.
Yeah.
Now look, I'm mad at Bert right now, guys. I got to tell y'all, I'm very disappointed and mad at Bert.
Uh-oh.
All right. No, we had a holiday party here, and I had contracted Bert to play Santa Claus, and he never came. So I'm still very frustrated at my good buddy Bert.
Oh man, maybe next year. Maybe next year.
He's going to be here next year. I already told Trey he has to be here for next year's Christmas party, or else we're in trouble.
Oh.
Yep, the kids were very upset that Bert wasn't here to be Santa.
That's too funny. Too funny. Well, Weaver, what else is on your mind? We've taken up quite a bit of your time. Don't want to hold you up because you might have to start putting layers on for your Dakota trip. That might take you a couple hours, but don't want to take up too much more of your time. But what else is on your mind, man?
So we're trying to plan out for 2024. We're trying to look ahead. I'm trying to make, we've been sitting here, we're talking about stress, we're talking about other things, we're starting yielding generations. Guys, the one big thing is throughout everything we do, and I'm the worst one at this, so this is where I'm going to tell you. It's now posted everywhere around the farm is slow down. Okay? We are very, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going next week, going the week after. So I try to jam as much as I can in a 24-hour period. And we're still trying to get ready for next year's planting and harvesting. And I'm working in the office before I leave. But we all got to slow down. And we got to pay attention to the details again. I'm working on planters, sprayers, grain trucks down the line. We're in the shop. We're in the office. I'm trying to get on a Zoom call here or pay attention to a meeting there. You got to slow down and pick what meetings are the important ones for you. Pick where, you can learn the most value. It's not about the free lunch for me. Okay. I know back in the day, every farmer used to go to a meeting because, oh my God, they're so-and-so's catering it. I can't do that. I'm missing a great lunch today with our John Deere dealership, but I can't be there because I need to be here. But I have one of my guys at that meeting, and that's tough. So one of the things I'm really working on for 2024 is delegating more responsibility out and slowing down. My kids are now 9 and 7, and Charlie wants to do more farming and be prepared and be on the farm. So we're working at slowing down a little bit, paying more attention to detail in 2024 and delegating it out. Matt's running the drone. Brian's handling the seed part of our business. So we're doing that, let alone one of my big goals, and this has been a goal for about 10 years, is products that are economic or environmentally safe. As I look at things and we hear all the Roundup buzz going on out there today, I want to make sure that we're leaving this ground and leaving the farm in better shape for my kids coming up around. They're getting more involved in 4-H, so they're starting to really ask the right questions. They're starting to say, Dad, why do we do this? Why are we doing that? So these are the things we're working for this year. You ask what's in my mind, Sheldon. That's what we're leaning towards. What new products can we help develop? Or, that's great. But we also got to slow down and pay attention to, I want to get 200 bushel beans. That's my goal. 200 bushel, no-till, non-irrigated. It's that plain and simple. And how are we going to get there? And that's what we're shooting for. So that's why we're going to learn to slow down, delegate out more responsibility, and pay attention to the kids along the way. So, yeah, that's what we're doing different this year.
That's great, man. I like that. Slow down, pay attention. I really like that. I think that's in today's day and age, I think everyone, even not in agriculture, could use that, right? Slow down, pay attention, do the small things right. Yeah, that's awesome. So your meeting in South Dakota is on the 17th, right, in Sioux Falls?
Yes.
Good deal. Well, if I know we've got a bunch of invites and stuff out on like LinkedIn and our Twitter account and Facebook and stuff like that. So if you're out in that neck of the woods and you want to come listen to Chris Weaver and ask those questions, feel free to RSVP on that. And then your yielding generations, that starts, when does that start, Chris?
Comes out in February. The first one will be out in February. We don't have an exact time yet because we're learning how to use the computer and tweak everything right now. We're trying our best. Rodney and I are doing a good job with all that.
Well,
cool.
That's all you can do. Well, Chris, really appreciate it. I mean, I value the information you're getting out to everybody. I mean, you have been such an open book to what you're doing and the yields that you're pushing and the programs that you're using. So I appreciate it personally, and I know a lot of other people do too, for taking the time again to educate people and to kind of be that open book. So really appreciate that, and keep it up.
You know, I'll answer any question anybody has, Mark. And you know, one thing is the farm's always open. If somebody wants to see something or what we're doing, they can come here anytime. I know we've had several people throughout the years fly in. I picked them up at the airport, and they couldn't believe I catered to them for the entire day they were here. But look, that's the only way you're going to get to see what we're doing and how we're doing it, is to actually come physically see it. So we're always here. You know, call me, set up an appointment if you want to come out and look at anything. The farm's always open.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Weaver, and yeah, stay warm, and don't forget all your long johns for South Dakota. It's gonna be pretty chilly out there.
I'm just gonna bundle up in the whole knapsack I plan on bringing, so we'll be in good shape.
There you go,
guys. I want to share one thing. You know, last year I was in South Dakota, and your rep there from Minnesota didn't know that he had a remote start on his truck for a couple months ahead of time, so I had to teach that to him last year. So this year, hopefully, Craig learns that there is remote start, and he can have the heater warmed up at least half an hour before I have to get in the truck this year.
That's a nice little life hack there. That's
yeah.
Good. Hey, it's all right.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Gentlemen.
Thanks so much, Chris. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Appreciate it.